So get interactive with us. Join us with your comments, your questions via our social media handles, because we are live on Facebook, we are live on X, we are live on YouTube, and of course we are live on myjoyonline.com. Now we start out with a very disturbing development in the Trafigura case. Joy News can confirm that oil conglomerate Trafigura Ghana Power Generation Company has taken over one of the country's most important commercial property, the Regina House in London. For 4 years, Trafigura has been unsuccessful in getting the government of Ghana to pay up to $134 million judgment debt awarded to the energy firm after the early termination of a power purchase agreement. This situation forced Trafigura to secure another judgment debt in the United States of America court, which awarded a mandatory interest on the default of $111.4 million, which remains arrears to be paid by the Republic of Ghana. Attorney General Godfrey Yeboah tells Joy News it is up to the Finance Ministry to expedite action on the payment. But Ghana's High Commissioner to the United Kingdom, Papa Owusu Ankuma, has confirmed in an earlier interview that Ghana's most important commercial property, the Regina House in London, has been taken over by the oil firm.
That is not entirely true. I mean, I'm surprised that he says I give the impression that none of Ghana's properties were under threat. What I said was that an application for receivership had been made in respect of some properties belonging to Ghana, and that of the properties, the subject matter of the charge, only one, Regina House, is used for commercial purposes. The others can be described as diplomatic properties. So these properties are not under threat. But even with the one which is the subject matter of the receivership, that is Regina House, negotiations, I know negotiations are ongoing between Ghana and the judgment creditors, GCPDC, to pay. That's all. But as of now, Regina House is the property of the government of Ghana, the president of Ghana.
That's on paper.
It is under receivership.
And that's on paper. That's also what he's alleging. He says so far the rent being taken for Regina House doesn't go to Ghana, but goes to Trafigura. Can you confirm if this is true?
Yes,
is this true?
Because Regina House is under receivership. But Regina House is still owned by the government of Ghana.
But we are not receiving any monies as a result of the renting of that property.
Of course, yes, because of the judgment debt, but the rents that are being paid are nowhere near the amount owed.
But what do you propose we do now?
We negotiate. That's all you can do. You negotiate. If we don't have the means to pay, we don't have the means to pay all at one time. So we should negotiate and pay.
Well, Vice President of Imani Africa, Bright Simons, has details of this ruling and joins us to share his perspective going forward. Mr. Simons, it's a pleasure to have you here on the Pulse. Good afternoon.
Sorry, good afternoon, sir.
Great. So, let's set this foundation. Within government circles, the Attorney General Office says that we've done our bit. It is up to the Finance Minister to pay. Until that is done, nobody can hold us responsible. The way this thing has played out, what is your initial reaction to this before we get into the latest development?
So, in discussions with your producers, they were of the view that some kind of background, etc., will be useful. Absolutely. I don't know if you have the same view. If so, then I have a presentation of about 10 minutes that can take us through the entire sequence of events that have brought us here.
Yes, please go on.
Is that of use?
Absolutely,
okay.
Please go on.
Okay, so if you give me I'm just waiting for them to allow the screens to be shared. Once they do that, I will go ahead and do that. But in short, this whole process started in 2015. As you recall, in 2015, we had the famous doomsaw, the power crisis. And during that period, the concept that emerged was this idea of emergency power plants. Essentially, we wanted people to come in here and build power plants very quickly. You know, it takes about 10 years on average in many parts of the world, especially in our part of the world, to put up a power plant, getting through financing, licensing, all of that stuff. Now, if you have a power crisis where you need the power immediately, obviously, it will not be possible to wait for 10 years. I'm sure you agree.
Right.
So we came up with a framework that said we'll facilitate and make it easier for you to set up a power plant within that short period. So I'm still waiting for your team to give me the rights to be able to present the details. And in 2015, February, the government reached out to a number of organizations that had the means, the capacity, and the resources to implement these emergency power solutions or fast-track power solutions. One of them was Trafigura, which have then set up a subsidiary in this country called GPGC to explore the opportunity. And in February, so we started to have discussions with them, and you know the discussions will include things like the pricing, which is often very key, various other elements that are essential, such as, you know, the considerations around who does what in the power setup, in the setup of the power plant. In June 2015, the country, unfortunately, I think we're having a technical issue, and I'm not able to share my screen. I'm not sure why that is.
Exactly. The back door is working to fix it. But once we do that, I think we can go on as this is. It is fixed now. I think we'll go on and share.
Okay, because it makes it easier. Okay, so give me a few seconds to do this.
Right. So we are having this conversation with Vice Simmons, Vice President of Humani Africa, and the developing story on this Trafigura, litigation with government is that Ghana's property in London, Regina property, Trafigura has taken over in terms of the monetary value that comes to Ghana, because there's a judgment that they need to recover. The reason why they have taken over this property. So, as confirmed by Ghana's High Commissioner to the UK, Papa Wusu, we are not getting any revenue from this property because of the development that took place in court, and the Trafigura has taken steps to enforce the court ruling. The reason it is now taking that rent of that property. So, Bright, if you are ready, I think we can go on.
Indeed. So let's now start by looking very quickly at the project itself, which is the power plant, which is in essence at the root of all these controversies. So the power plant is a very simple idea. The company had some relationships in Italy that gave it the power and the right to relocate 2 turbines. These are GE. GE is a big American manufacturer called General Electric. And they make power plants that are like power plants in a box. So you can think of them like it's a power plant, but it's in a container kind of thing. And you can load it and you can move it from one place to another. So 2 of these turbines, they are LM6000 turbines, were relocated from a place called Gorizia in Italy. It's a power plant, but they have spare capacity. So they were going to take them, bring them to Ghana, and when they're in Ghana, they'll be installed in a simple mode and then complex mode. I'm going to go into the details of that. But essentially, once they've done it, that full cycle, they're able to generate 107 megawatts of power. Now, remember that our shortfall in power was ranging from 300 megawatts on some days all the way to 1,000 megawatts on very bad days. So 107 megawatts will solve all the problems, but it will solve some problems. To do that, because it's a fast-track solution, they don't want to bear all the risk, which is what some power plants do, get their own fuel and the rest of it. They wanted government to essentially hire them to produce power and pay them as they produce the power. That is often called a tolling plant. Right. So essentially, the government provides the fuel, the government provides the land, everything else. And this is very similar to what we did with Ameri and some other plants of that nature. And even with the established power plants in Ghana, sometimes the situation is such that the government still is responsible for fuel and other inputs, and the company or the power producer then charges us what is often called a capacity charge. In this case, it was called a capital recovery charge because, in essence, it also included the cost of financing the power plant and the fact that they were not going to charge a separate variable charge. So essentially, it was a single charge. Government provides them with fuel, government provides them with the land, government facilitates the line system. When all that is done, they produce the power, and for every unit of power they produce, often measured in kilowatts or in megawatts, kilowatts hour or megawatts hour, the government pays 3.7 cents. So I guess, that part is straightforward. Then they have to move on and, get this coming in. So in June 2015, we signed this agreement. They ship the power plant. They start the process of getting this set up. The government also ensures that Parliament ratifies the deal. So that ratification happens. And they are responsible for all the engineering, the technical work, and getting the plant into Ghana. The problem is that once that happens, it's up to Ghana to be sure that, we've inspected this power plant, we are happy with it, all of these things are aligned. So we sent someone to Italy, to Gorizia, to go and do these inspections. And that person is well known, and at that time was a technical advisor to the minister. Once all of these matters have been done, the gas that was going to be used to power this plant was Ghana's responsibility to provide, but they had to be tested to make sure that it's compatible. All of these things were done. The government more or less committed to make sure this will work properly. VRA, which is very essential, VRA was provided land on which the power plant will be based, and it was supposed to be in Bois in the Takoradi enclave. Eventually, when the process got underway, our usual challenges in administration in this country, the tendency to have this chaos at the heart of administration, the tendency not to coordinate processes properly, started to interfere. So the first thing was that the land that was supposed to be available had some oxidation plant on it, and you couldn't put the power plant on there. So VR eventually gave new land in the Tema area. From the Takoradi area, now we come to the Tema area in Tony, for them to relocate the power plant and put it there. The power plant had yet to arrive. They then realized that they couldn't use that land there because there were people within GRA that were fighting them. So they got their own land by renting from Blue Ocean. They also realized that the tax incentive that had been promised, that these items would come in duty-free, was not available. So essentially, they were billed for tax, about 10 million euros, more than 10 million euros by GRA. Ministry of Finance, however, wrote to them and said to them that if they submit all the documentation, etc., from the Ministry of Energy, they'll be refunded. They applied for a license from Energy Commission. Energy Commission said it was processing it. However, when the plant arrived in June 2016, thereabout, it took them many months for them to be able to decide that they were going to do what the government had said, which was pay for it and get refunded. All that said, the plants arrived, they started construction. Unknown to them, in 2017, when all of these conversations were going on, the government had obviously changed. There was a committee that had been set up before in 2016 to do this work. But that committee then had their mandate updated to include recommending which power plants to terminate and which ones to allow to continue. So that committee, chaired by the Executive Secretary of the Energy Commission, then recommends that certain power plants that the government had contracted, including these emergency power plants, be abrogated. We stop using them, we terminate the deals. Cabinet adopts this in June. And in August, the Attorney General writes a decision that more or less argues that the power plant is expensive. Well, that decision had already been made by the technical team at the Energy Commission, the PPA committee. And so based on that, the Attorney General then provides a strategy based on terminating this plant. Remember that our primary analysis, our primary thinking, our logic was that this power plant is expensive. If we let it produce power for 4 years, we'll pay almost $100 million for 100 megawatts. What is the point? Terminate it and then, in a way, cut your losses. So that was the thinking. Now, here is where the problem arises. One, the power plant was not excessively expensive. On a per unit basis, the capacity charge or the capital recovery charge of 3.7 cents per kilowatt hour was very similar and in many cases lower than what we're charging or we're paying as capacity charge to other plants. And you can see on the screen a number of power plants that for all of these we're paying more than this plant was going to charge us.
Absolutely.
So I've given you examples of them. We're paying for Senate 4 cents on a capacity charge basis, Sempower 5 cents, etc. And car power more than 5.6 cents. Secondly, the notion that we have excess power has itself been contested, as you know, because now we know the government is still signing these power deals. Right. And around the time we were still signing these power deals, there are companies like AXA that have already signed another deal very recently to put a power plant in Kumasi, Nawomaso, etc. So these were questionable. The energy but here is where it gets important, and this is why we have a judgment depth. The analysis on which the decisions were made were shoddy and flawed. The Energy Commission Executive Secretary, for instance, suggested that terminating the plant would cost the country about $80 million, but he hadn't done his due diligence. I didn't actually look at the full range of costs that were being incurred. He had also decided, that, based on analysis that he'd conducted, this was an expensive plan. I've already shown you that the evidence hasn't established that this was more expensive than the other plans. Secondly, the Attorney General's decision, the advice that he had given to the government was extremely flawed. He had suggested, for instance, that the licensing was not done, and because the licensing was not done, the company did not even have the power to enter into a contract in the first place, that the plant was a second-hand plant, that because of all these reasons, if the government terminated, it is rather Trafigura that will pay Ghana an early termination charge.
Yes.
Now, all of those things were very flawed because the licensing regime and all those things were conditions subsequent that in more or less fashion, in more or less terms, the government of Ghana had committed itself to be the one to facilitate. The land, for instance, had been something that the government of Ghana had committed itself to provide. Remember that the company had actually got some licenses. It got a EPA license. It had got a tariff from the PURC. It connected to Ghana Water. It then started to construct a gas pipeline through China Petroleum to connect to the VRE metering station. It done a lot of things that clearly meant, and it done it with the knowledge of the government, meaning that constructively the government was very aware of this agreement and fully supported it. On top of this, then when the matter was then determined, that arbitration was the only way forward. So, actually it's worse than that. The government then writes in February 2018 to the company purporting to terminate the agreement. The company protests, obviously, as they would, given all the money they've spent and all the leading on that had happened for them to spend that money. They protest very loud. The Deputy Minister of Power at that time tells them in 2017 that, oh no, the president had made a different decision, so continue investing. And then in April, he tells them, well, actually, it's looking like, this is going to be difficult, but we are going to terminate some agreements, but yours is not going to be terminated. This is in reinforcement of a commitment that had already been made in October 2017 to them. I'm talking about 2018 and not in 2017.
Right.
So in 2018, the Deputy Minister of Power assures them that the president has allowed them to go on. And this reinforces a meeting, the outcome of a meeting in October 2017, where the same Ministry of Energy had made those commitments. What then happens is that the company continues to invest until in June, the government then finally kind of, mounts up and then tells them that, no, they will not reinstate the agreement. They need to start all over again and negotiate a complete new agreement. So the company now then exercises rights under the agreement, terminates it for frustration, and then proceeds to arbitration in August 2018. Now, at arbitration, it becomes very clear that Ghana is completely unprepared. It takes so long for them to submit their statement of reply. It takes them so long for them to produce documents that they have committed. They keep saying that the documents are not being made available to them by other departments and agencies. It goes on and on, even paying the deposit, the fee deposit. The arbitration, the presiding arbitrator was selected in January of 2019. It took Ghana up to December of 2019 to pay its fee deposit. So Ghana was completely unprepared. Not surprisingly, when the final outcome came, it was that Ghana's counterclaim had been dismissed. All its arguments had been dismissed. Its expert witnesses were highly unreliable. They were contradicting each other. And damages of $134 million were awarded against them. Remember that the power plant never became Ghana's property. The company carried the power plant and took it away. So instead of us negotiating to buy the power plant outright or give it to VRE or something like that, we were so ridiculous in the way we went about this that the company demobilized, carried the power plant away, and still won damages of $134 million. So that $134 million of damages does not include us then getting the assets. It's merely for the cost of the financing that they raised, the cost of mobilizing the plant, the cost of demobilizing and shipping away, and all the fees that they have paid so far, including the import duties. That $134 million is very important. Keep that in track before I come back to you for your questions around what is happening now.
Exactly.
So that $134 million was awarded in January 2021 in the United Kingdom. This was the seat of arbitration. The arbitration was administered by the Permanent Court of Arbitration, and it was a standard tribunal under what we normally call the UNCITRAL rules. So the UNCITRAL rules are kind of like standard generic rules of how you do international arbitration. And we adopted them and used them for arbitration. And at the end of it, we then had this situation where the $134 million in costs were imposed upon us. Ghana had the option to go to court in the United Kingdom to set it aside. You cannot appeal that final arbitration award, but you can argue that the arbitrators went in excess of their jurisdiction and could ask for an annulment. Ghana did not do it within the prescribed time. Then we went to court eventually, White and Case, and made the representation that we intend to appeal, that we intend to file for annulment or judicial review. We were given an extension of time, even though the time had already passed. The court agreed to give us an extension of time. We still did not file a defense. This is 2017. We still did not file a defense. Sorry, this is in 2021. Apologies. 2021. We still did not file a defense. And then finally, the arbitration, the court then dismissed our case and more or less reaffirms the arbitration. So that is where we were until the company decided then to proceed. And in 2022, because once we lost, we had made some negotiations and we're still not paying. So they proceeded to go to court and file what is often called interim charging orders against our property in London. So now I'll pause for you to let me know how you want the conversation to go.
So few issues here. I mean, the sequence of the event leading to the termination of this contract. I mean, clearly, from what you're telling us, the Attorney General's advice to Cabinet may have been based on the on the work done by the Energy Commission. Is that right?
It was done by on the work done by the PPA committee,
the PPA
which
committee.
had people from different agencies, but was chaired by the Energy Commission.
All right.
So essentially, the Energy Commission's executive secretary chaired this committee on behalf of the Energy Commission, but the membership came from different agencies and departments.
So for you, what could have informed their decision to say that terminating the contract was only going to cost Ghana $80 million? And we are saddened
because they
with
hadn't done the due diligence properly. So I think the assumption was that, this will be based on the government taking action quickly so that some other charges do not pile up. But then what was the nature of communications? Did they make it clear to the government that this company was still incurring costs? Did they make it clear to the government that this company had done financing? The biggest gap in their analysis was forgetting that the company had borrowed money to undertake some of these work that were being undertaken. And also, they didn't really look at the mobilization costs properly. They didn't look at preservation and maintenance. There were a lot of costs that they simply missed in the analysis, which is why they got it wrong.
So Bryce, will you say that they did a poor job? And then
yes, they did a totally poor job. But the worst job was done by the Attorney General. Because remember that the Attorney General, as a legal advisor, has to be very cognizant of risk. So to continue to advise that the government goes ahead and terminate for things that the government, for failures, that the government was itself complicit, in letting arise, I think was really problematic. And then don't forget that even when before the matter went to arbitration, we had the possibility to settle. We didn't have to wait for the matter to get to arbitration. It's the duty of an attorney general to look at the case and say, look, you don't have a good case. Look at all the issues. You need to settle. They didn't do that. But the matter went into arbitration. During arbitration,
you're welcome back to the pulse here on Joy News. My name is Elton Brobe. So we had a little challenge with internet connection is restored, and I can go back to Bright Simmons as we exhaust the many issues that have come up so far regarding the Trafigura government issues. So Bright, I'm trying to understand why the Attorney General would come up with the advice to government that we're rather going to benefit from compensation from Trafigura when the facts were very clear on this matter. Yeah, so Bright, I was asking that I'm struggling to understand or come to an acceptance of the position taken by the Attorney General then. That Ghana was rather going to get compensation from Trafigura in the event of a termination of a contract when the facts were very clear to all the players involved in the negotiation, the committee, and the termination, and the process leading up to the termination.
Yes, I mean, the argument was that the company had failed to dispense or to fulfill its part of the contract because it had not, got a license that allows it to operate in the country as a power plant from the Energy Commission. The suggestion was that it had provided a power plant that was not to the requisite standard, etc., etc. But the argument that you have to bear in mind is that the nature of the agreement, given that it was, as you think of the context, it was an emergency power plant in a country that is having serious issues with power. So the issue was that you could not expect the investor to do all of those things on its own, right? You cannot expect the investor to do that. You will expect the government to work with the investor to be able to arrive at that position. So given that fact, it didn't make sense for the Minister of Justice at that time to think that this was a matter that will entirely inure to the detriment of the investor in an arbitration scenario. And so you have to think of what will happen if the company goes to court or go to arbitration, in this case arbitration. How will the arbitrators see the situation? You have to have that risk management mindset. And I'm saying that given the nature of the agreement, that the government was responsible for helping the company to do what they have to do, to tell the government that you can go ahead and abrogate, and when you do, because the company has not done so and so and so, it has not achieved this and that, it has not done so and so, because of those factors, the company will now be liable to pay Ghana the early termination charge. I don't see how that makes sense. Remember that in the end, the company got a lot of money from us, not only because of the mobilization charges, the finance charges, but also for foregone profits. For profits that it did not manage to make over a 2-year period or a 4-year period because this was terminated. And this is a standard thing in these kinds of contractual disputes. Now, the point was, how is Ghana in any event going to be able to demonstrate that it has lost profit, given the nature of this dispute? So to think that Ghana, had the upper hand, to me, was pretty problematic. But to go on, remember that, like I've explained to you, it became apparent during the proceedings that Ghana didn't have a good case because of Ghana was struggling to keep to timelines.
But we had witnesses.
Not responding.
But we had witnesses. Sorry. I'm saying that we had witnesses during the trial.
Yes, we had expert witnesses from UCG and who had one of them was a very senior person at VRA who had gone on retirement, etc. But the problem is that their testimony was not properly coordinated, and it tended to, at the same time, conflict with some of the things that have been said. And they had argumentative argument. Let me give an example. At one point, they were arguing that the amount of losses that the company was calculating was not very correct. Meanwhile, they had not even looked at the documentation on the plants for things like uptime. But the expert of the other group had done that. The expert of Trafigura had studied the GE equipment very closely. And the arguments they were making were therefore far more persuasive, because the tribunal could literally just refer to it and say, your uptime calculations are wrong. So things like that. It didn't seem as if anybody had prepared these witnesses. And on top of all of that, okay, so you lose the arbitration. Typically, you try and do some delay tax so that you give your government a chance to negotiate and the rest of it. One of the perfect ones is to seek judicial review. But in this case, to try and get judicial review, the bar was very high. If the government at that point did not then want to do it, it just simply had to negotiate. Instead, it hired another law firm, paid more money, and then refused to actually file the defense. And then when he didn't file the defense and were given an extension, it still didn't file the defense. And then went back to court trying to make an argument. And then when the court dismissed the case, and eventually the company then went to court to apply for the interim charge and all this, the government went back to court again, pay more lawyers, claiming that the way in which they were served with the notices was wrong because they have gone through diplomatic channels. This was when they hired White and Case to go and make that case, which was all useless and just basically paying money to lawyers that have strong connections to the political elite in this country. What was the point there? When eventually, though, the matter got critical, and the company went to the Netherlands and filed for enforcement there, and went to the US and filed for enforcement there, we never put in an appearance. We never put in an appearance. And now we come to this issue of Regina House, which I think is the starting point for the second part of the conversation you want to have with me.
Exactly. But before you go into that, I just want, from your own, view, and the way things went, shouldn't we hold somebody responsible? Because clearly, it doesn't look like the state of Ghana was prepared to defend itself. It will appear to me that they knew that this was going to land us in court, and then decided that they would play along. It appears to me that
it's very strange.
Yeah, it appears to me that this whole exercise may have been as a result of somebody's whims to get the people out of the country at all costs.
There has to be, at the very least, contrition. There has to be some acknowledgement.
Yeah, it appears to me that we are encountering the same issue again with internet connection to Bright. We'll see if we can we can get him back on this matter. But this is indeed a developing story, which is very unfortunate. But how is this going to play out, and how are we going to resolve this matter? Already, our property in London has been taken over by Trafigura, and we'll continue to collect, rent from this property until they recover all their money awarded to them by a UK court, and now there's compound interest also building up on this. If we are able to establish contact with him, we'll continue. Remember also that we are dealing with the Cocobod reaction to the minority NDC in Parliament, and we'll have details for you as well. But if you're able to establish connection again with Bright, we'll do that. But for now, we've lost him. For now, let's move to some other stories as we prepare to engage Cocobod on their reaction to the NDC. The NDC in Parliament say the West African Examination Council has postponed the marking of BEC script due to lack of funds caused by government indebtedness. As of June, government owed the examination body 300 million cedis for services rendered between 2022 and this year. Addressing journalists in Parliament, ranking member on the Education Committee, Peter Nochukotoi, demanded that government settles its debt immediately before the academic calendar is shown out of sync.
At the launch, they mentioned that government has paid for the registration of basic education certificate examination candidates for 2024. If you remember very well, it took this minority to talk about the payment for the registration to enable WAEC conduct the BEC for 2024. So at the time, government had to release 55.9 million out of over 200 million that they owe WAEC. So I don't understand, or we don't know, why at the launch they will claim that they had paid. If they said they had even absorbed, that would have been better, that they have paid for the registration of BEC candidates. As we speak now, WAEC had to postpone the marking of BEC scripts from this month to September because they don't have the funds to do the coordination and marking, which we call post-examination activities. They still owe WAEC for the BEC, and we are demanding that government pays this money to WAEC so that they can organize the marking in time. As a result, the school calendar is going to be disrupted again. Those who are to go to SHS this September will be at home. They will not be able to go. So it is likely that the academic calendar is going to be distorted again, and they may go to school somewhere in December, which we are trying to avoid. And you know the effects of the double track that is having on the school calendar in progress now. So we are asking government to release money to WAEC as urgently as they can so that the marking can take place for our young ones to enter secondary school in good time.
Well, speaking of debt, the minority says government owes the suppliers of tablets some amount of money that requires to be paid, according to Peter Nochukotoi. This indebtedness cannot continue to remain on the books of government.
A few weeks ago, before Parliament went on recess, the minority put out a news release that government was owing suppliers of various items, including food items, stationery, tablets, and all that to the tune of over 6 billion Ghana cedis. We were expecting government, especially the Minister of Education, to come out and deny it. We did not hear from them. At the launch of the manifesto, they mentioned that they had distributed 900,000 tablets to senior high schools as part of the free SHS program. I listened to another speaker who said 90,000. So I don't know which is which. In our press release about 6 or so weeks ago, we indicated that it's a program that, as a party, NDC, we support very much. But where you are not prepared for it, you don't have any budgetary allocation, and you go into it, you create problem for the suppliers. As we sit here, we know that 1,350,000 tablets were procured, and the supplier had to look for a loan in dollar-denominated cedis. That means that any time he's going to pay the loan back, they will calculate the rate. If it is 18 cedis to the dollar, that is what he will have to pay. He has been denied payment for a very long time now. And we don't know why government is refusing to pay. You are killing the business of the supplier. We will also want to know from government how many schools have received the tablets so far.
So that's the minority in parliament on the BEC and government indebtedness. Let me quickly take you back to Bryce Simmons. Apologies for the difficulty we are having with the internet connection, but let me conclude with him on the Regina House. So, right, welcome back. My apologies. So the matter now is the Regina House in London, and it is in receivership. How would this affect Ghana in terms of, laying claim to the property?
So let's be clear about something. When the company filed the interim charging orders, the government had the right to respond to those. It didn't do it until it progressed to a final charging order. Now, what we have to bear in mind is that that is a stage in proceedings. The company has the right to go back to the court and apply for an order for sale. So the challenge I have with the High Commissioner is this tendency to suggest that the situation is not desperate. The situation is desperate. And I think he should give the right signals to government. The company can at any point decide to progress beyond the current charging orders to apply for an order for sale building. So this is a risk that we bear. And how would that happen? And that will happen if the government continues to be in default. These charging orders were applied. The government had the opportunity also to apply for an installment, an affordable installment order. Essentially, go to the court and tell the court that, yes, we want to pay, but can they sequence it for us? The government didn't do that. You get my point? So we have serious problems with how the government is managing it. And the signals from the High Commissioner is not helping, because keep giving the impression that this is not a serious matter. But it is a serious matter. Of course, the rent that was going to the High Commission will not go to the High Commission whilst the charging order persists, because the economic interest in that asset is being given to the company. And that is where the company is at this point. It is not in the company's interest to push for an order for sale immediately, because they also don't want to inflame the situation. And what they would like just to get cash. To get the property is not, and try and sell it, it's not the company's interest. They just want their money. Remember that the country has already paid almost $100 million.
Right.
And yet still, the original charge of about $134 million is still now, we still are around $112 million. And every day it increases. So my point is, why are they paying in pieces when they don't seem to have a defense? Because it just simply, the interest rate is 6% plus LIBOR. It's a very high interest rate. You get my point. Yeah. In today's terms, it will be over 11%. Just at that time, LIBOR was low. So it's higher than our Eurobond charges, for instance. Our Eurobond cost, for instance. So why would the government maintain such a charge? You see my point? Why not, if you don't have a defense, you're not defending, why not just pay them off?
But the High Commissioner, did he feel in his negotiation with Trafigura the reason why we are where we are now?
No, he's not responsible for the negotiations with Trafigura, but he's responsible for conveying to the government in the clearest terms that this is not a light matter. This is a serious matter.
He gave us
assurance. It's my challenge.
He gave us assurance some time back that he was in the process of, speaking to them to try to come to some understanding that will benefit both parties. And where we've gotten to now, clearly it may sound that he failed in that regard.
Well, obviously, if he's made assurances to the nation that he will get involved in the negotiations, etc. But you see, what I do know for a fact is that his job as a high commissioner is to play the foremost intelligence role of communicating to the government and the people of Ghana when our interests are endangered, sold, etc. Forgetting that these are steps in the process. The company has the power to apply for an order for sale because it's not diplomatic property. It's property that is being used for commercial activity.
Right.
And so he has to be careful in the way that he communicates. That's my point.
Going forward, in terms of risk policy and decision making for some of these international deals, what should we be guided by? Yes, right. I was asking. Now we have this. This will serve. I was asking. We have this will serve as a guide. Now going forward, in some of our international dealings, what should guide us so that we don't get into some of these, issues?
Okay, so let's go through the sequence of risks very clearly. The first issue is that Regina House is not completely safe. The company has the opportunity or the ability to escalate the enforcement, and that could include applying for an order for sale. The second issue is that the company has gone to the Netherlands and has gone to the US, and there too is apply for enforcement. That is the first stage. The next stage is then to look for assets of Ghana and attach them. Those assets are available. It's up to a judge. In the US, for instance, we have bank reserves with various banks, some of them private banks, some of them the Federal Reserve of New York and other quasi-government banks or quasi-private banks. The point of the matter is that we even have a Cayman Island asset that is very valuable because we decided rather than to repatriate money that we receive from selling some stake to some companies in one of our oil fields, we decided to keep it in the Cayman Islands. The Cayman Islands is very arbitration friendly. These are all assets that if the company gets aggressive, they can go in and attach. And the point is step by step. So when they start certain steps, we shouldn't just sit down and wait. If they go to the Netherlands and apply for enforcement and the court accepts it, the Court of Appeal in Amsterdam has.
Well, again, we
didn't even defend. If they find any of our assets in the Netherlands, they will apply to put an encumbrance on it, like they've done in the case of the UK, and take away your economic interest. But they can also move forward and apply for sales orders.
Well, we are in deep trouble then. But I'd like to say thank you so much for spending some time with us this afternoon, right? And I know that News 4 will have more bites on this matter tomorrow. Bryce Simmons is Vice President of Imani Ghana, sharing his thoughts on this developing story relating to Trafigura and, of course, the government of Ghana over the termination of that, power deal that landed us in the UK court. Now, from Trafigura, let's move to Ghana Cocobod, because the board is dismissing claims by the minority in parliament that it has been rejected by international banks and chased out from the market. According to Cocobod, these assertions are false because syndicated banks submitted term sheets in response to Cocobod's earlier request for proposal for consideration. It states that the minority claims are full of falsehood, inaccuracies, and misrepresentation regarding the current state of cocoa sector and Cocobod's decision to win itself of the syndicated external borrowing to create more value for farmers. There's more in the statement they issued a while ago, and my colleague Sabako Brace joins me with details of the statement Cocobod released. So, Brace, what are the specific responses from Cocobod to the minority?
So Cocobod is responding to the minority's claim that banks have rejected Cocobod's proposal for them to come on board for the syndicated loan. Now, it says, quote, the assertion by the minority caucus that the international banks have rejected the Ghana Cocobod request and that Cocobod was chased away from the market is false. Now, they explain that this is because the syndicated bank submitted term sheets in response to Cocobod's earlier request for proposals for consideration. Now, they say that, quote, indeed, notwithstanding our intentions to win off syndicated transactions, we still have committed contracts that need to be fulfilled through the syndicated process. These transactions have necessitated a discussion with financial institutions, and nothing in this process indicates to us a lack of confidence in Cocobod's credit worthiness from these financial institutions. Now, remember that there was issue about where Ghana is going to get source of the funding to buy the cocoa for the 2024-2025 season. Now, Cocobod says, quote, for the avoidance of doubt, the proposed decision to explore non-syndicated funding is part of a broader strategy to diversify our sources of funding, making the board more self-financing and sustainable in the medium term to long term, deriving more value for farmers and retaining more value within the Ghanaian economy. Now, remember in the release that the minority put out, they said Cocobod has consistently been making losses. Cocobod is refuting this claim, and it goes ahead to refer to an audit by Ernst & Young on their 2023 account and say that, quote, this show a profit of 2.3 billion cedis during the 2022-2023 crop season, marking a significant turnaround from the previous year's performance. This financial success is a demonstration of the effectiveness of the strategic initiatives undertaken by Cocobod, including cost-cutting measures, improved operational efficiency, and targeted investment in key areas of the cocoa sector. Then Cocobod goes ahead to talk about the financial performance and sustainability of what they do. It says, as a matter of fact, whereas world market prices from 2017 to 2022 were record low, down 30%, producer price were sustained to safeguard and sustain the industry. Now it says the minority cannot deny that the same period of financial challenges has witnessed massive investment in key innovations, interventions, and productivity enhancement programs, including digitization of cocoa farmer households and farms into a comprehensive cocoa farmer database, a national cocoa traceability system, pruning of cocoa farms, hand pollination, and the introduction and use of motorized pruner slasher machines, and rehabilitation of cocoa swollen shoot virus diseased farms, a fundamental debilitating condition for which the NDC government and the former President John Mahama failed to achieve. Then Cocobod goes ahead to talk about historic achievement that they've done and referred the minority to the fact that Ghana recorded its highest ever cocoa production volume of 1,045,000 metric tons of cocoa during the 2020-2021 crop season. And Cocobod says that this historic achievement was a direct result of effective management practices and targeted interventions by the board, including improved agronomic practices, enhanced farmer support, and strategic investment in the cocoa sector. So, I mean, the Cocobod is trying to disprove what the minority is putting out there. And Cocobod is referring the minority to the fact that they are aware that the future of Ghana's cocoa has been secured with a successful rehabilitation of 74,813 farms spanning 67,385 hectares, which they say are owned by 56,105 farmers. They go ahead to say that these farms now thrive with hybrid disease-tolerant cocoa varieties that have started bearing fruit, and the volume of cocoa from these farms will continue to increase in the years ahead. They go ahead to say, quote, out of the 74,813 farms rehabilitated and now at the various stages of growth, 44,480 farms covering 40,150 hectares belonging to 28,510 farmers are yielding as of August 2024 and will soon be handed back to their owners. Now, they say that because of the positive measures and programs currently being infused into the sector, cocoa farms in the transition belt that were converted into cashew cultivation when the minority were in power with former President John Mahama are now being turned back to cocoa under the present government. Now, they say that contrary to the minority's claim, the NPP government remains fully committed to the cocoa sector. The government has invested heavily in the sector, including the construction of roads in cocoa growing areas, the provision of subsidized fertilizers and pesticides to farmers, and the implementation of cocoa rehabilitation program. Cocobod then concludes by saying that it is urging the public to disregard the minority's press release, which seeks to politicize a strategic and forward-thinking policy decision. The board remains focused on its mandate to sustain and grow cocoa industry, ensuring that it continues to contribute meaningfully to Ghana's economy and the livelihoods of cocoa farmers across the country. It says Cocobod invite all stakeholders, including members of the minority, to engage in constructive dialogue and collaboration to support the continued growth and development of Ghana's cocoa sector. So Elton, Cocobod is saying that whatever the minority put out there are factually incorrect, and that Cocobod has made the best decision in the interest of Ghanaians to help keep value in the country and not to give a lot of the money that we get from our cocoa to foreign entities through the syndicated loans. But they appreciate that because they are still bound, through these syndicated processes, they are going through to look at how they can repay some of the, outstanding that they have. But they are saying that this decision to source for funds within is a good one that Ghanaians should hear. Thank you so much, Kojo Brace, for that update from Cocoa. We're hoping to speak to Ghana Cocoa. We don't have them yet. If you are able to raise them, we'll have them respond to some key concerns that the minority raised, and that is also in the public domain. But before we do that, friendship knows no barrier, not even disability. At the University of Ghana, Felicity Widava, a jury, and Esther Boadu are proven just that. Despite the former short stature and the latter's visual impairment, their bond is unbreakable, and together they navigate life with resilience and joy. Their inspiring story is demonstration to the power of friendship and determination, showing us all that disability is not limitation, but a unique strength. Emmanuel Jivenu of our education desk has more in this Joy News Later series, Disabled.
My name is Felicity Ajuri-Wedava. I'm a person living with disability called achondroplasia. I'm unique and special in all my ways and aspects.
Felicity moves her hands with dexterity as she applies a cold patch to her bicycle tire.
And my mom and dad always advised me to learn how to use those things to repair my bike.
A bicycle is a lifeline, not just for herself, but for her friend Esther Boadu, who is visually impaired.
When I came to the University of Ghana, I could see that mine was a little bit tough because some of them couldn't see. I thank God for my life, and then I was like, God, I didn't know that my problem was not as much as compared to others. I think I could help them because I can see.
When I came, I was always in my room. I was like, so how am I going to mingle with people? Stigmatization and stuff. When I met Felicity, I was like, wow. I've met, although she's also a person with a disability, but she's helping me a lot.
So she was like, she's a visual impaired, she can't see. So I decided to help her.
And so began a friendship. Every day, Felicity and Esther navigate the sprawling campus together. As Felicity rides, Esther holds her shoulder, guiding her friend to their lecture halls.
Every time I have to help her out by sending her to the lecture halls and all that. It has been a very difficult task for us, but I still insist of helping her by riding her to the lecture halls.
The photography of the land is not favorable to us. There are gutters, holes, steps and stuff, and she's using her bike. So when we get to gutter, we have to, because she has to get down and help her. I will help her with the bike, carrying it to cross the gutter before we continue. When there are steps, she has to get. It's stressful.
Their bond extends beyond the classroom. They study, cook, and share laughter during their leisure time.
They think that maybe coming in contact with them, they will actually be infected and other stuff. So I decided to be friends with her in order to give her a helping hand.
Their friendship is reciprocal.
When she's going to buy something, she'll be like, Esther, please. And I said, Felicity, how can I visually impaired be? I said, she said, no, I don't care. Let's move together. We move together. So anyway, so I really like there is this friction between the two of us. Yeah. Sometimes I do say something, I will be like, Felicity, why are you not mad at me? She said no, then I'll just apologize and we move on. Yeah, so I really love our friendship.
Their shared moments of joy and mutual support paint a beautiful picture of what friendship truly means.
I want to be a journalist because I've not seen people giving news like me. And for that matter, I would like to use the power of the microphone to advocate for persons living with disabilities.
We want the whole world to know of our friendship, a visually impaired and a person living with a quadriplegia, being besties.
Despite the challenges, Felicity and Esther are determined to succeed in their academic pursuit and hope their friendship will inspire others, as well as highlight the need for better support for students with disabilities. Emmanuel Jivenu, Joy News.
My God will always lead me
to Pentecost.
Really?
And that's a beautiful union there. Now, away from that, rising deaths associated with non-communicable diseases is a growing concern for health professionals in Ghana. The country currently has 65% record of deaths associated with diabetes, stroke, heart, cancer, and kidney diseases, a rise from 43% reported by the World Health Organization in 2022. A family physician has warned of escalating non-communicable diseases due to poor lifestyle, including alcohol abuse, smoking. There is more in this report.
Non-communicable diseases kill an estimated 86,000 persons in Ghana every year. The World Health Organization has labeled this surge as an emergency, warning the situation is exacerbated by insufficient investment in health infrastructure and a lack of conscious lifestyle. Family physician specialist Dr. Abraham Amponsa says many Ghanaians lack control to practice moderation, contributing to the increasing prevalence of lifestyle-related diseases.
We used to see a lot of these things in the advanced countries, but these days, in this part of the world, in developing countries, in low and middle income countries, we are seeing a lot of these non-communicable diseases. And hypertension and diabetes are key risk factors responsible for these non-communicable diseases, and they are on the rise, okay, in this part of our world. In addition to that, we have what we call infectious diseases, malaria, HIV/AIDS, tuberculosis, and so on. And that's what we mean by having a double burden of disease. And these are smoking, alcohol misuse, inappropriate diet, and lack of exercise. So basically, of course, alcohol misuse, I believe many people don't know what it means to drink in moderation. And then our diets are also looking like the diets of the advanced countries. And these days we live a lot of sedentary lifestyle. So I think that is why we see a lot of this lifestyle diseases in this part of the world.
Dr. Abraham Amponsa was speaking at the inauguration of an MMA lab in Kumasi. He encouraged the public to prioritize healthy lifestyles.
The citizens must take their lives into their own hands, okay? You cannot depend on the government or health. In addition, you do a medical checkup. Don't wait till you fall sick. Go to the hospital. You want to get your sugar checked, your blood pressure checked, your cholesterol checked. You want to know your weight, and then prostate screening for the early male, cervical cancer screening, breast cancer screening, and so on. So you can put in measures, personal measures to make sure that you prevent disease and to stay healthy.
Reporting for Joy News, my name is Clinton Yeboah.
The 2023 awardees of the Joy News Impact Makers, Ellen White Opoku, has donated a wheelchair to a bedridden woman as part of her support to the needy in the Bono East region. Ellen, who was informed about the woman's plight, gathered resources within a week to provide a means of movement for the woman. Anna Sabet has more in this report.
She is in her late 70s. For 9 months or maybe longer, she lost her ability to stand or walk. It all began one sad evening when, after performing ablution and ready to perform the Maghrib prayers, Salamatu Sule felt a sharp pain and fell off eventually.
I used to go out in recent past. I was able to walk until one day I was done preparing food and was about to have the evening prayer. And after performing ablution, I noticed I can't even stand on my feet. And when I was about sitting down, I fell off and that was it.
Since then, she has to be helped in and out of her room each time she wants to move out.
I was unable to step out until I'm carried by my children. Even when I want to take my bath, they have to do same or clean my body if they are unable to lift me. It is worrying because even when I used to go out, life has been difficult. How about now that I can't do anything?
Salamatu will today heave a sigh of relief after a 2023 Joy News Impact Makers awardee, Ellen White Opoku, managed to purchase a wheelchair for her after hearing her plight from a friend just a week ago.
A week today, last Friday, I received a call from one Auntie Millicent telling me about our mom here. Seriously, I didn't know her. But after telling me what happened and how come she's not able to walk, I told Auntie Millie, I'll do all I can to make sure we get her a wheelchair.
Ellen, through the Ellen White Sustainable Foundation, is asking the general public to come to the aid of Salamatu to enable her survive in these hard economic times.
We pray that we get people who come in to support her. You know, she needs a lot of support. So, you know, the kids are always, when she's the only one supporting them. And looking at her condition, it's not easy.
For now, Salamatu Sule is a happy woman. At least, she now has a wheelchair to enable her move from one end to the other. And as the saying goes, half a loaf, they say, is better than none. Anna Sabit, Joy News.
Right, so that's our show, but we've got something big coming up. That's our show. For more stories, log on to our website, myjoyonline.com. Stories on myjoyonline.com. Newly elected TUC chairman pledges to strengthen weak organization. Trafigura seizes Ghana's Regina House in London over $134 million judgment debt default. And of course, so many stories. Ghanaians have the competence to lead multinational corporations that they are something. And of course, Ever Culture takes center stage at the 2024 Chale Wote Street Art Festival here ongoing in Accra. But I'm going to leave you in the hands of my colleague, Kojo Jansen. The question is, who are the people behind the new foundation taking over the WEB Du Bois Center? Why has government agreed to hand over this state property in the prime center of cantonment to them for a whopping 50 years, apparently for not a single pesewa? This is another example of the land grabbing scandal that keeps popping up in recent times. Or is there more to this deal than meets the eye? Super Morning show host Kojo Jansen took a closer look for us in this exclusive interview with the executive director of the Du Bois Foundation, Jofat Ayiku.
W.E.B. Du Bois had just 2 more years to live by the time Kwame Nkrumah brought him here to Ghana at the age of 93. This geriatric scholar was already known for his freedom-fighting credentials. Here to do a particular task for the government of Ghana, our first president put him right here in this cantonment bungalow, one of many built for government officials. 2 years after his arrival, W.E.B. Du Bois died and is buried here in Ghana. But in those 2 years, he achieved far more than most government officials of today are able to achieve in 8 years. Today, his legacy lives on and is a big source of attraction for many Pan-Africanists around the world. They consider this hallowed ground, a Mecca. But today, it's the center of controversy, because news that a foundation is to take over the management of this facility for 50 years has raised questions. But why live with questions when you can get answers? And that's why we're here, to speak to the head of that foundation, the executive director of the Du Bois Foundation. Let's meet Mr. Japhet Ayiku. Thank you for your time with us today.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for the opportunity to have a conversation with you.
Now, it's an important conversation because W.E.B. Du Bois has a respected legacy.
Yes.
He's a very important part of the Ghanaian story, but of the black story around the world.
Yes.
Tell us how you became involved with the Du Bois legacy.
Legacy, okay. So first of all, I really want to share with you, through you, to the people of Ghana, that I'm here because on the 27th of August, next Tuesday, we are commemorating the 61st anniversary of his passing. It's very, very important part of our program here. We will have a symposium where Du Bois scholars from the US are coming to talk about the life and works of Du Bois. We have a scholar from the University of Ghana that will also chip in for that. Then later in the evening, we'll have a wreath laying. We've been doing this for the past 3 years since we got involved with the Bois Center. But today, this one will be a special one because the President of Ghana has agreed to come to lay a wreath on behalf of the people and government of Ghana. Additionally, he's here to cut sword for one phase of the project that we have in mind. So the question about how did I get involved with this thing here? I'm a Ghanaian born. I'm born in Ghana. I went to school here, but I went to the US. I've been away for quite some time, 54 years. Along the way, I worked at JP Morgan Chase, I retired, and I started doing some non-profit work. I work with Jeffrey Sachs. We're here for 5 years, helping the Ghana government with Millennium Development Goals and all of that. And then we started working with a foundation called the Helping Africa Foundation. What we do is that we build computer centers. In fact, our mission is to build one computer center in each of the 16 regions of Ghana. We started in 2016. We're already finished. We have just 4 more to go. So the members of the board of that foundation includes Henry Louis Gate, Kwame Appiah, Michael Moran. These are individuals who are Du Bois scholars. And over time, they used to come here to visit the Du Bois Center. So they brought it to my attention. They said, Japhet, you're a Ghanaian. Have you been to the Du Bois Center lately? I said, no, I have not been. So we'll go and see what is happening at the Du Bois Center. It's falling apart. Can you help us do something about the Du Bois Center? So that's how I got involved in initial conversations and all of that, and we got into where we are today. So I think I'll leave it for you to sort of have some follow-up questions on that. But
so it sounds from what you've explained that you brought this idea to the government of Ghana.
That is correct.
Right. And your idea was to do what?
Yeah. So when they asked me to see if I can do something about the Du Bois Center, I said, yeah, I'll try and see what I can do. I had my first meeting with the then board of the Du Bois Center here at the Du Bois building. I said I want to work with you guys to do something. They laugh at me in the beginning. They say, well, Japhet, you Americans, you come, you talk, you go, we don't hear from you. And it's true. There are people that make promises they don't deliver. I said, no, this is different. I am a Ghanaian American. I promise you, if you guys will work with me, I'm going to change this place up. And I said, okay, fine. So they said, I asked them, give me your priorities. What are the priority items that you want to do here at the center? And I'll see what I can do. I got the priority items, and the first item on the list was for us to build a bungalow here for the director of the center. Kojo, I lost it. Really? Why a bungalow for the Du Bois director? He says, well, he works late. Why does he work late? He works late because he supervises parties and weddings and funerals at the center. Oh, nothing about Du Bois celebration? Nothing about Du Bois celebration. It is parties that he supervised, and he wants us to build a bungalow for him. I lost it. I said, no, something has to be done. So I started a conversation with the then government in power. This was 2016. We talked about possibly doing something here. The president at that time agreed that, yeah, it's a good idea. Maybe you guys can even look at the Padmore Library, which is another area that's falling apart. We agreed to do all of that. Of course, elections have consequences. 2016, they lost the election, so I have to start all over again. And I was fortunate enough to meet President Nado in March of 2019 at Harvard. Had a conversation with him, says, when you come to Ghana, come and visit. I met with him again in May of 2019 with my boss, Deborah Rose. Then we brought out the question, Mr. President, I have some people in the U.S. who are willing to help renovate the Bois Center. I said, yeah, it's a good idea. Go ahead and look into it. We're excited. We started a conversation. He came to New York in September of 2019. I gathered together the Du Bois scholars, Henry Louis Gates, Kwame Appiah, and others. We had a wonderful conversation. We talked about the possibilities, how we're going to redo the whole place up and all of that. He was very happy. We settled on an architect. Okay, it wasn't difficult to settle on David Ajay, who was the premier Ghanaian architect who built, whose design built the Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C. So it wasn't too difficult to settle on him.
Who suggested him, you or the president?
No, see what? Henry Louis Gates is a friend of David Ajay. So David had done some work at Harvard. So Henry Louis Gates brought up his name. So yeah, that would be a good idea.
And Henry Louis Gates, of course, is a member of your board.
Yes, he's a board.
So it was the board that suggested David
That is
Ajay,
correct.
not the government of Ghana.
No, not the government of Ghana at all. It was Henry Louis Gates who brought it because they are close friends. And within 3 months, he put out the whole architecture for the complex. We met with the president again in December. He liked it, and we said, okay, negotiate with the government, the ministry, to come up with an agreement. Of course, COVID hit. We're going back and forth and all that. I think we finally got an agreement last year that will enable us to do what we have set out to do. And I'm sure you want to know the details of the agreement.
I absolutely do. Starting with perhaps the one that has garnered the most controversy.
Yes.
50 years.
Yes.
Why 50 years?
Okay. Why 50 years? As a matter of fact, when we started the negotiation with the former government, they asked me, how long do you guys want to be here? The language that I used was, we want to be here for as long as the remains of Du Bois is interred here. Kojo? The language that I want to use was to be here for as long as the remains of Du Bois is interred here. And that is because over the period of 60 years, look at what has happened to the remains of Du Bois. Look at the place. This man is the greatest African-American intellectual of all times. And look at where he lies. But yesterday, the word of Du Bois must have stood against the world. Now lies him here, and none so poor to do him reverence. Shakespeare. Look at where he's lying. So we were very upset. And we said, no, are we going to be here for 10 years and then turn over the place to... would the Ghana government be interested in preserving and taking care of the remains of Du Bois? I don't think so. We didn't think so in the beginning. But they forced me and said, no, Jaffe, you have to come out with an end date. I said 100 years. No, 100 years no good. So we settled on 50. Now the 50 years, even though I was advised that the Ghanaian government, the Ghanaian people will not buy the 50 years, so let's split it up. So it is split up between 30 and 20. That we're going to be here for the first 30 years. After that, we will meet with the then government in power and evaluate our relationship, how things are going. Is the Ghana government happy with the way that we're managing this place? Are we happy with the way that the Ghana government is treating us? Now, this is important because we're going to be raising $85 million in port in here. We are not taking a penny back to the U.S. Nobody, it's not a loan, it's a grant. It's a donation that people are going to pour in to build this place up. So, you can't put money here and just walk away. So at the end of 30 years, when we examine our relationship, when we're happy with each other, we'll continue with the next 20 years. So I'm hoping that I'll be 120 years and then I'll be talking to them. So that's what's happened. So it's not straight 50 years, it's 30, 20. And again, just to preserve what we are going to invest here, we think it's important for us to be here. Now, when I say us, I'm talking about the Du Bois experts, the people who care a lot about Du Bois. They are going to train Ghanaians. They're going to expose Ghanaians to the Du Bois legacy, to the African-American experience, so that they know that, yeah, this one is important, and we need to keep this place clean and make it a hallowed ground for Du Bois scholars, for people to come and visit here. That's all it is.
So who did you have that negotiation with? That settled on 50 years? That settled
on 50 years. The Minister of Tourism at that time, we dealt with 3 ministers. One was Barbara Otin Jesse. We started with her. we had an MOU, and then Honorable Ibrahim Awal, also came in, and we talked about 30, 50 years and all that. And then finally, we have this new Minister Mesa. But the agreement was concluded essentially on the Ibrahim Awal. And I got to tell you also that we had difficulty in moving forward with this agreement. And Honorable Kuma, of blessed memory, okay, I never even got a chance to thank him. Honorable Kuma came into the conversation. And he's the man who drove, okay, the discussion for us to complete this agreement here. May he rest in peace.
So the agreement was that you will run this place for 50 years, split into 30 and 20.
Yes.
At the end of 30, there'll be an assessment.
Yes.
And then if everything is going well, another 20
yes.
is added.
Yes.
So during that period,
yes.
What does government of Ghana get?
Okay. Right now, the government of Ghana gives a budget to run the place. As far as we know, there's nothing that comes out of here that the government is making. It is a place where they are proud that people come to visit.
Do they not make any money from the event center?
So, no, it's supposed that whatever they make here is internally generated funds that they're supposed to use to maintain the place and to pay for the workers that are here. That's how our understanding is in terms of the financial operation over here, and then the government supplements whatever they're able to raise. When we take over and start our operation, Kojo, there is a language in the agreement that says that in the new complex, at the end of every year, we will, the foundation will give to the Ghana government 5% of our net revenue to support other institutions in the country, such as the castle, such as the Kwame Nkrumah Mausoleum and all that. We'll be willing to do that. And it's interesting, it's an interesting clause, because when they put that clause in there, the lawyers at the Ministry of Finance said, no, you cannot do that. You cannot force a non-profit organization to give back, because technically we're not supposed to make any money. Non-profit, they don't make any money. Whatever they do goes into the operation of the foundation, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing. But nevertheless, we said we crafted a language that says that we will voluntarily support other institutions in the country with 5% of our revenue at the end of the year. Now, we don't know how much we're going to be making, because what we want to do really is to make this place as free as possible for Ghanaians, number one, to learn about Du Bois and the legacy of Du Bois' contribution to the world and all of that, and then the other African countries. So essentially, we're not looking at charging all kinds of monies here. We just want this place to be a place where people will come and study the Du Bois legacy, publish, do the research, and know that, wow, this great African American helped us in our emancipation, the whole African continent, and all of that. So,
now this is very valuable land.
Yes.
Right here in Cantonments, it's worth millions of dollars. Once you've finished your project, and I've seen the plans,
yes.
Once you've completed the project, there are going to be several complexes here.
Yep.
There's going to be a memorial, very beautifully designed memorial, designed by David Ajay.
Yep.
There's going to be a big multi-story building with a library in
yes.
there and a
museum.
state-of-the-art museum.
Yes.
There's going to be a sort of a conference facility, if
yes.
you will. All manner of revenue-generating facilities
right.
here on this valuable government land.
Right.
Now, for this 50-year period,
right.
these facilities will generate some revenue.
Well, we hope so, yeah.
Yeah. Is it a fair deal for the government of Ghana, being the owner of this multi-million-dollar land, once you've completed your project, to be getting just 5% of your net revenue,
yeah.
Rather than a substantial amount of whatever income these new facilities bring in?
Yeah, okay, so that's an interesting question. And that is because all the revenues that are going to be made are going to be plowed back into the operation of the center. Nobody's taking any money out of the country. If we make a penny today, we're going to plow back in there. Now, we are not quite sure how much money we're going to be making out of these 9 things that you're mentioning here. So our aim is that of the $85 million that we're raising, a substantial amount of that, maybe $20 million or $50 million of that will go into an endowment. We are looking to run this place on an endowment, okay, where we are going to set aside the money to make sure that this place is run properly. That the facilities are kept well. Something that breaks, we'll fix it right away. That we have the right people to run the place, because running a museum or a library is not cheap. And we want to have the best people so we can pay them well. So I'm not quite sure how much money we're talking about generating out of all here. And again, as I said, it's important for us to use this complex not as a commercial enterprise. We're not looking at it as a commercial enterprise. We are looking at it as an educational enterprise to bring pride to the Ghanaian, the African, and the people that believe in Du Bois. Wow, this is a place for us to be. So commercialization is very, very low on our radar. But nevertheless, we said whatever the net revenue is, we are going to have revenue sharing with the Ghana government. Now, do you want us to walk away? We can walk away and the place will still be where it is. If there's any competitive idea from the government or from somebody else that we're going to put up a commercial structure over here, it's a different story. But as far as we know, this is supposed to be a sacred ground for Du Bois, and therefore commercialization doesn't come into place. So we're not looking at how much money we're going to be making. No, we are looking at the content of the place, educating the children of Ghana and Africa about the contribution of Du Bois, the father of civil rights movement, the son of the global movement for racial justice and equality, and the father, the son, and the spirit of the Pan-African movement.
Now let's talk about the governance structure. It's another issue that has been raised.
Right.
As we understand it, there will be a board governing this place, and you will be the chair of that board. There will be some 3 slots on that board to be taken up by representatives of government or nominees of the president.
Right.
The suggestion here is that for a facility that is really, even under your management, still under the auspices of the state, the expectation is that the state will play a stronger role in its governance. For example, why can the chair not be nominated by the state?
Okay. Yeah, so I want to also add a couple of points to the agreement, and that is that in the agreement it says that 2 years after we have taken over, something called commencement date. 2 years after the commencement date, that is beginning September 21st, 2023. Within those 2 years, we have to raise $13 million. And this is again to guard against any waste of time and resources. Okay, we're supposed to show that we have raised $13 million towards the project. If we're unable to raise the $30 million in the 2 years, we have to sit with the government or Ghana officials and discuss it and say, well, what were the challenges that you faced and all of that. So that's also a guardrail that was put in the agreement to ensure that this is not something that we're just walking away from. So within 2 years, we have to demonstrate that we have raised $30 million, and then everybody's happy. We'll continue with the project and all that. So I just want to mention that in there. Now, about the governance of the place. We believe that we are the ones who are bringing in the money. The $85 million is going to be raised by us. The government is not going to be involved. We're not going to take any money from all that. So we believe that to pump the money in there, we have to have the majority of the board membership. So that's something that we argue back and forth with the minister, and he ceded to that. Okay, fine, we get some ceded. This is supposed to be, it's very important. We wanted to establish a standalone, non-profit entity without any interference from the Ghana government, so that we can be able to bring all of the resources, all of the ideas and all of that. That's exactly what we wanted to do. So we agree that the Ghana government will have 3 seats on the 9-member board. If we increase it, they also have more seats on that. About the chairmanship of the board, I am leading the effort. I have the dream of this project here, and I'm going to let it be somebody else take it, and somebody who's not passionate about it, I will not agree to that. You have to be passionate about what we are trying to do, because we have a lot of work to do. And that's why I believe that we'll have to retain the majority as well as the leadership of the board. It's that simple. Yeah.
Now, when this arrangement comes up for review in 30 years' time,
yep.
God willing, you'll be about 120 years old by then.
Yes.
What's plan B, just in case, God decides he needs you for other services before that date?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm only teasing that.
But what's the succession plan?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're the chair, is there a duration?
Absolutely. There's, the chair, I don't even think is more important as much as the executive director of the center, who's going to be running the day-to-day affairs. At some point, I'm going to retire. I really want to lead this effort to try to raise the money and get this thing done, and then we're going to have a wonderful celebration and dedication in 2028. That's really my goal. After that, we can talk about what else is happening and all of that. I'm not a Du Bois scholar. My background is in banking. I just have the enthusiasm and the drive and the dream to make this thing happen. And I think in some ways, I just go back to I think when I was 14 years old, I came across Source of Black Folk, and I couldn't read it. Somehow I was able to memorize the first paragraph of the second chapter, which stayed with me for more than 60 years. The problem of the 20th century. I think Du Bois was even wrong, thinking that the problem of the 20th century is the color line. The problem of our whole century, the whole humanity, is a color line. The relationship between the darker skinned people of Africa and Asia and the lighter skinned people of Europe is still going on today, Kojo. African Americans are being shot and killed all the time. Why? They're being denied job opportunities. Why? They're being denied housing opportunities. Why? Because of the color of our skin. So this problem of the color line, we are still trying to find answers for that. And that's what this Bois Center is going to be, to find answers for the problem of the color line. How do we live together as human beings without looking at color? That's the question. That's why I'm excited about this project, that we can find answers to the problem of the color line, that we can find answers at this center for our own challenges as Africans. How do we govern ourselves? Kojo, Du Bois was about a double consciousness. You and I are going through double consciousness, but we don't know that. We're colonized by the Europeans. They gave us some ideas. So we don't even know who we are as our own identity. Double consciousness. We're going through all of that. We have accepted and adopted the European way of governing ourselves. Is it working really well for us? Democracy is not an easy system to live under. Even the US, they are struggling. You have to have a powerful press. You have to have a powerful judiciary, independent, to do the right thing, to ask the questions and all that. And the citizens may be smart enough to read and to question things and to agitate. Are we doing that in our country? I don't think so.
And that is deep. Although, I mean, I'm still hoping for a more specific answer to the question about the succession.
Well,
so what is the plan in place?
Okay, so now I'm the executive director. We're going to have a deputy executive director. We're going to be training the person to take over at some point. The board, we haven't even met yet. When we meet, we're going to have vice chairman of the board, and then we'll see how things go, and we'll come up with our own succession plan. We'll come up with our own governance systems and all that. So I don't think that's a big issue. I mean, if I drop there now, there are some people that can take over. There's a gentleman that I've been working with, Cocobod, I think is a great friend of mine. He is learning more about what we've been doing. If I drop dead now, I think he can take over and drive this thing here. But God is good. I'll be around.
Amen. So it will be the board that makes the decision, in your absence, of who is to take over.
That is correct. Yep.
Right. Now, listening to you, one might come to the conclusion that until your arrival, really, nothing was happening here. No value was derived from this facility. Government was basically achieving nothing with it. It was of no worth until you came along like a knight on a white horse to save it. Is that, I mean, your critics tend to find themselves very displeased by this concept.
Okay.
That
so,
the government, seems to have been doing nothing until you came along.
Okay. So Kojo, I never said that we are knighting on the shining armor coming to save the place. I never said that. All I'm saying is that we came in 2015, 14, 15. We looked at the condition of the center, and we began to ask ourselves, what is going on here? This center is supposed to be a property of the Ghana government under the Ministry of Tourism. People come here all the time. They collect fees from them. And the fees is supposed to be used to maintain the place. Have you seen the books that the boys left behind? The papers in the books. They are all rotten, they are decaying. It is sad to see the condition of the books. Have you seen the condition of where he lies? The carpet is dirty and filthy. Nobody sort of cares. So the question is, why don't people care about this place? And all we are trying to do is to say that, listen, we have people with the expertise and the willingness to pour money into this place here, to fix it up, to make it into a global institution and heritage site, and of all things, boys. And that we are willing to pour the money in there. But if it remains a government property, we'll not get anybody to sign $5–10 million check to go to the Ghana government. It won't happen. Nobody will do that. So this place has to be a standalone entity governed by International Board of Directors. That's all that presented to them. And if they say they had ideas to do, well, by all means they should have done that. And if they think they have the money now, wants to do it, and they want to stop us, we can stop. We can stop what we plan to do and just do some other things. We're doing I'm doing a lot of work in Ghana with other organizations. As I've mentioned to you, we're building computer centers all over the country. One computer center, 50-seater computer center in all of the 16 regions of Ghana. It's a noble idea. We're replicating it to all over Africa. We're in Liberia, we're in Sierra Leone, we're going to other places. We are trying to get the Ghana government to buy into it so that every constituency in Ghana will have a computer center. I'm pushing that agenda as well. So if somebody says that they have $10 million, $5 million, $7 million to redo the Bois Center by the Ghana government and they want to stop us, by all means, we'll find a way. But the Bois story is a great story.